Joining us now is our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, we just had, during our break, we were playing some video of this situation with Iran. Has now confirmed that the U.S. is once again holding indirect talks on the so-called nuclear deal. What I don't understand here is they've never abided by it, the Iranians. The whole thing's a ruse. The Biden administration now, instead of realizing the folly that they've had in trying to do this, are going back into it. You pulled out of it, these negotiations with the Iranians, and we ended up having the greatest peace in the Middle East in our lifetime. What's your sense of where we are in this?
Boy, they're like a dog with a bone with respect to this thing, chasing the Iranians, allowing the Iranians to make demands on the United States that are just absolutely inconsistent with American security, and certainly putting our friend and ally Israel at risk as well. You know, Jay, we lived this, right? We took over when President Obama had entered into this silly thing that became known as the JCPOA, which had no chance of actually preventing Iran from getting the capability to build a nuclear weapon system. We withdrew and began to punish the regime, denying them the wealth to conduct terror around the world, to pay scientists to continue their nuclear program. And then these guys came in and flipped the switch. And dangerous with respect to Iran and its nuclear weapons program, but you can also see when you play footsie, when America plays footsie with the Iranians, the Gulf states and Israel take notice. And so if you're the leader of Kuwait, or you're the leader in Bahrain or Saudi Arabia or the Emirates, and you see the Americans providing wealth and resources to the Ayatollah and to President Raisi in Iran, when you see that, you say, I got to hedge my bets. No, I no longer have confidence that the United States stands with me against this terrorist threat. And this is where we find ourselves today. America is less secure, and so is our friend and partner and ally, Israel.
You've been talking about this a long time in our broadcast, and we've had conversations about this in depth, and that is we've seen this increase in Chinese influence in the Middle East during the administration, this administration. You get the sense that Iran feels more emboldened to hold a hard line now because they see that China is pretty much flexing its muscles and getting away with it in the Middle East.
Absolutely true. Certainly see this with some of our friends and allies, and see it most clearly with this axis of bad actors, right? The Iranians, the Russians, and the Chinese. So the Chinese are buying Iranian oil today. They are paying in real currency. The Iranians are then using that to build drones and weapon systems they're providing to Russia to kill Ukrainians. I mean, it's bizarre to think that we're sitting at the table with the Iranians negotiating while they're working against us in Ukraine, helping our Russian adversary. The Chinese watch this and just they must think, oh my goodness, we could never have guessed we'd get so fortunate to have an American leadership that doesn't understand how these are all connected. These theaters of conflict are all connected, and Xi Jinping desperately needs Vladimir Putin to be successful. And when we negotiate with Iran, we increase the chances Putin will be successful.
So the Ayatollah says this week that if Iran wants a nuclear weapon, they're going to get it. Do we have any of that sound, even if it's in Persian? No? Okay. No one can stop them. So how does this administration think they can negotiate when the supreme leader's rhetoric is clear and that they're going to get a nuclear bomb and they're on the path to doing it? And as you said, it's destabilized the success of the Abraham Accords, at least started to destabilize that. I mean, who are we negotiating? We're not negotiating in good faith.
You used the exact right word as you opened, Jay. This is a ruse. To have the Americans, to have Brett McGurk run around saying, oh, yeah, we'll talk to the Omanis. Like the Iranians have no more interest in actually striking a binding agreement to preclude them from building a nuclear weapon and indeed a nuclear weapons program. They have no intention of signing such an agreement. To think that somehow this administration believes they can either delay or prohibit them from doing that by signing a piece of paper with the Ayatollah, I mean, that's folly, that's naivete, and it's dangerous, Jay.
Last question for you. We just had Jeff Balaban from our office in Jerusalem on. Israel has been under attack heavily by proxies of Iran. There's a lot of proxy battles going on, especially in the last 6 months. Are you concerned with Israel's ongoing security? And the second part of this is Saudi Arabia was on the verge of either joining the Abraham Accords, but certainly was in cooperation with the Israelis and other partners in the region. Is that forever broken, or what are we seeing here with that, with the situation with Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the other partners in the Middle East?
Well, two things, Jay. First, I think you're right with respect to Israel and their concerns about continued threats from Iran. During our time, it was very clear. We understood Israel had every right to defend itself, and we always made sure we were clear whatever they needed to do to protect the rightful homeland of the Jewish people, we were going to support them in that effort. Second, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia wants to be part of a peaceful, stable Middle East. There's no doubt about that. And when they see a zealot religious theocracy like what's happening in Iran, and they see the United States not prepared to defend them and help them against that, they try to find a way to hedge, to co-opt, to make sure that they aren't threatened by that regime. But it's widely known in the Middle East, the policy that the Obama administration and now the Biden administration have adopted puts them at risk, and so they're trying to figure their way through this. They very much would like to have peaceful coexistence with the nation of Israel, and I'm confident that we can get there. It is not broken forever, but when your leader says that the crown prince is a pariah and won't even speak to them, boy, you have just made that nearly impossible for him to do while the Biden administration remains in office.
Mike Pompeo is the senior counsel for global affairs for the ACLJ, but is also the Secretary of State and Director of National Intelligence, Director of the CIA. And when you have a situation like this and you can rely on the expertise of Mike Pompeo, that's pretty good. And your support of the ACLJ makes that happen. Thanks, Mike. We appreciate your insight on that.